Welcome to the Well-Oiled Canine Podcast, where your dog's health is our top priority. I'm Dana Brigman, a canine nutritionist and certified holistic pet health coach, specializing in aromatherapy, homeopathy, and herbs. Join me on a mission to help your dog eat better, feel better, and live longer. Now let's dive into a world of natural pet care and discover the secrets to a happier, healthier pup. Visit me at welloiledcanine.com. Hello, everybody. I am Dana Brigman from the Well-Oiled Canine with Angela Keith from 456 Canine Coaching and Wellness, Canine Behavior and Wellness. I don't know.
456 Canine Coach.
So, welcome to 2025. And we're going to kick off the podcast series for the new year. So, Angela's going to take the lead on this one. I'm making her do it.
She knows how much I love talking in public. This is sort of public. Yeah, so today we're going to discuss new dogs, new puppies, basically do's and don'ts of bringing a new dog into the house. Because whether it's a puppy or whether it's an adult dog that you've adopted or acquired from a family member, the rules kind of all are the same, as far as soon as the leash is put in your hand, you're the leader. That's always one of the first places I start with anybody. They say, "Oh, I'm getting a new puppy. What are the things that I need to do?" Put a leash on the dog and don't take it off until you can trust them.
Exactly. And I think people are reluctant or even don't even consider having the dog wear the leash in the house.
Yeah, people don't think about the fact that the leash is more than a walking tool, that it actually can be used for everything all day long.
Yeah.
The leash is a very valuable tool, and it's the one that everyone has because everyone has a leash for their dog. And the most important thing that I try to stress to clients and even people that not clients, people that I meet on the street, this is one of those free advice tidbits that I will always offer anyone.
Yeah.
The best way to stop bad behavior is to never let it happen. And you do that by preventing it with the leash.
Yeah. It helps with potty training. It helps with crate entry and exit and being out of control in the house and roaming off into areas that they should not be in, especially if you can't supervise because you're working from home or trying to shower or whatever those things are. Maybe not shower. If you're showering, the dog should be in the crate, but you know what I mean.
Yes.
So, what else? I actually have a blog post. I don't know if you do. I don't know if you've spun your website up yet or not, but I have a blog post that says, I think it's 9 good reasons to use a leash inside the house. And it's all about tethering that dog to you.
Yeah. And tethering, yes, tethering to you to have the dog watch and observe and learn through acclimation. But one of the big things I like to do as well to help a dog with confidence and independence and things like that is tethering them around the house away from me.
Okay.
I just picked up a new training puppy this morning, and that's one of mom's training goals is, I just can't have her under my feet all the time. So one of the big goals that we'll work on is her being able to self-soothe and not having to be right beside someone, but be on a bed on the other side of the room, that type of thing, and just watching and being a part of life at home, but not being underfoot.
Right. And that can help with the prevention of separation anxiety.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that's I call it confidence and independence is how I basically explain it. But yep, all of those things, preventing bad behaviors, helping to develop those skills. That's what helps a dog mature when they learn to do things on their own and not having to be right there beside you. Some people think it's endearing that they have Velcro dogs. But that's not always the case at the end of the day. Like, is it really endearing, or do you wish you could go to the bathroom by yourself?
Right. And is that dog so codependent that they don't function well? That's where I get concerned, is that we're creating dogs that don't have that ability to self-soothe, as you said, or to be on their own. And to me, that is not a well-balanced animal if they can't.
Right. Yep, it definitely, it's one of the reasons why a lot of dogs get sent to training and people
Mhm.
get frustrated that their dog can't function, if unless they're right there beside them and they have separation anxiety and they don't listen to anyone else in the house. Like those are the issues that come from a dog not learning independence.
Yeah. I got a message the other day. People got a new puppy for Christmas. And I keep debating, am I going to continue doing the training side of things or not? And right now the answer is not. But they're like, the dog doesn't walk well on a leash. When she does, she bites the leash. I was working with a client not long ago with a bigger dog that does what I call runs up the leash, meaning
Mhm.
they're sort of spinning up, trying to get to your hands and
Yeah.
that kind of stuff when they're frustrated with having that leash on. So what do you do for introduction and resolving those types of issues?
Let's see. I actually had a dog that wanted to eat the leash off of so
Mhm.
that he wouldn't be attached to
Yeah,
the owner
I do that
anymore.
too. Yeah.
But it's about desensitization, really. And the you want to take the novelty away from there's something attached to me and probably just put a leash on them and don't take it off, have them drag it around everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's not a thing anymore. It's just always there. And that's what I do with most of my clients too. Every dog goes home with a slip lead. So it's not a clip leash that goes on a flat collar. It's a slip lead that is biothane and they can drag it anywhere all the time and nothing's going to happen to it.
Right.
And it goes back to that, the first thing we were talking about, like don't take the leash off until you can trust the dog. Well,
Yeah.
part of that is don't take the leash off until the dog trusts the leash.
Right.
The leash doesn't make them scared or too excited or, whatever emotion that is attached to that leash. You just have to change their mind about it.
Yeah. I've also seen people buy these little dainty pink leashes because their dog's female and it's gonna be a 50-pound pit bull like Bob. I'm like, no, no, let's not do that. The leash to me is my tool. It just
Hmm.
connects me to the dog, but it's the
Yeah.
way in which I can communicate with that dog. It's not, it really is a tool. So make sure you're getting one that's suitable for your dog. And if they are big time chewers, especially as a puppy and going through that teething phase, I've actually had to temporarily use leashes that were made out of chain so they can't.
Oh, yeah. I actually have a few of those for the severe cases.
Exactly. I don't need them often, but there have been a number of times that I've pulled that thing out and said, you know,
Yeah.
I'm gonna need them.
They're so heavy.
They really are.
And I don't love them unless it has to be a permanent solution for some, off the wall case, but I don't love them because you don't have, because and I know you do too. It's a lot of pressure and release when I'm teaching a dog to communicate with a leash and you don't, even if you've got it attached to a martingale collar or something else, it's got that extra weight on it.
Mhm.
So there's always just a little bit of tension on the leash that I don't want to be there.
Right. Explain pressure and release. Help people understand how they use that.
Yeah, good segue. I was actually going to say that earlier and I forgot. Yeah, so pressure and release, and that's where I introduce the slip lead to all my clients. Flat collars are great, and I tell people don't get rid of your flat collar and don't get rid of your clip leash because we're going to teach your dog to communicate on this tool, and that's always going to be your training tool, your communication tool. But let's say you want to take your dog for what we call sensory walks, and you want to let them sniff and do all of the things that dogs do. I want your dog to do that on a flat collar so they know they're not in training mode, that
Okay.
they have some freedom to do this and that. I do that a lot with my clients that live in apartments.
Okay.
because they have different goals when they take their dog outside. There's potty breaks, and then
Right.
there's we're going to go exercise or go somewhere and things like that. And
Mhm.
I don't want the dog to think that it's okay to pull on that training tool because I'm the one that should be applying the pressure to it. So I have them use, whether it's a flat collar, a harness, or whatever, I actually do have them use two different tools
Okay.
to help the dog decide what's happening. But yeah, pressure and release. If anybody's worked with horses, it's very similar to training a horse. You teach the animal to yield to the pressure. So pressure turns on by the person. You're telling the dog. We teach dogs pressure sits and pressure downs.
Right.
We teach them directional. We're going left. We're going right.
So loose leash,
Yep,
pressure on, right? So if we're applying pressure or the dog's pulling against us, that's the pressure part,
that's the
right?
pressure.
And if it's loose, then they are not under any sort of correction, right?
Yeah.
We turn it on, like to get them to sit, you may lift up, right? Or to come with me to guide them this way. You give a little bit of pressure, not dragging, but a little come this way kind of motion. So I just want people to sense that in the looseness of the leash or it's got pressure on.
Yeah, the leash essentially becomes the second form of communication you have with your dog. You
Mhm.
have your verbal commands, which they need to know before we teach them leash pressure. Once they've learned and understand the verbal commands, then we teach them those same skills with the leash. So then you're able to have your dog do a sit or a down with the leash, and you don't have to verbally tell them.
Yeah. So with that in mind, would you say leash techniques are first in the list of things to focus on? I think we often focus on teaching them to sit or to lay down or something like those lines, but I think getting that leash skills is a big deal.
That's the first thing I do.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times, too, unless it's a really young puppy, a lot of times a dog knows sit. Even if they only know the action of it because we're offering them food to do it,
Right,
they know the muscle movement of the action of sitting.
right,
But yeah, I always start with a leash because it helps me develop a relationship with the dogs. They know I'm speaking to them through this leash.
okay, good. I like it. What else?
Um, our original topic was new dogs, right?
Mhm. Yep, you got a dog for the holidays, and what do we do with the kids? And one thing that was on my mind as you were just talking is like when we do teach sit, I want people to go beyond these skills as a trick for a treat, right? In introducing that release word, so they really start to build in a stay to
Mhm.
it. Because we want it to be a life skill that they can use in a lot of places with a calm state of mind, not just performing some sequence of events or a choreography that gets chained together.
And only doing it when being bribed to do so.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
So what about dogs and kids?
Dogs and kids, and even dogs and dogs too. Gates, leashes, all of that protects the dog and the small humans and other animals
Mm-hmm.
from mistakes because and I think I mentioned this earlier too, like dogs learn a lot by acclimation. They're toddlers. Monkey see, monkey do, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
if you have another dog in the home and the dog doesn't have great manners and you bring a new dog in the house and you say, we're going to do everything different, but they're watching the other dog with the bad behaviors, you're going
Mm-hmm.
to have the same problem. So I want to make sure the dog's learning from me and not necessarily the other dogs.
Right. I always say
So
there's no better trainer than the pack, but
yeah,
if the pack is out of balance, adding a new
yes.
dog is not going to fix it.
Yeah, make sure the leader of the packet actually has the behaviors you want to
Is qualified for the
displayed
job.
in the new dog.
They have to be qualified for the job.
I've had clients ask like, do you think it's too soon to get a puppy? And my first question back to them is, do you feel like your current dog is 100% where you would like it to be obedience wise? And when they say, well, I'm like, then you're not ready for a puppy because you're gonna have to train two dogs instead of one.
Right, right. And, a lot of times I see people get puppies or young dogs or whatever because the kids want it or whatever. And then they also have a senior dog. And that can create a whole funky thing going on. Like Huey at almost 20 now, I would love a puppy. I would love to bring a puppy in and use it for demo training and all the things. Because even Poppy's, I mean, she's 10 years old now. She's still good at demo dog, but she's aging, but it's not right. I mean, we are not ready. My dog, I don't think it would go well.
Right.
And I say that as a trainer with experience who knows how to handle those moments, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't think people think those things through sometimes.
Well, and I think I would be willing to bet that most of the time the decision to get a puppy is based on the human's want and not the
Oh,
dog's want.
100%.
You may
Absolutely.
say you're getting your dog a puppy, but you're getting a puppy because you want one. You haven't really thought about, does your dog want a puppy?
Right. Right.
Gouda's an only dog now, and I know she likes having company, but does she want a puppy in her face all day, every day? Heck no.
No.
She's retired. She's past that life.
And Poppy's kind of the same way. Again, she turns 10 probably sometime next. I don't know her actual birthday. I know when her gotcha day was in March. And so if you back up the calendar 8 weeks,
Yeah.
it's sometime next week. But she's over client dogs in about 20 minutes. She's like, okay, I'm done. I've had enough. Right. So all day, every day would not go well.
Yeah.
And she's an easy dog.
Gouda was my tester dog. I took her
Mhm.
to shelters to evaluate other dogs, and we fostered for years. And now I
Right.
train and board out of she's been exposed to so many hundreds of dogs in her
Yeah.
lifetime. I would say immune to it. Like she doesn't get super excited like your average dog would be to meet a new dog. She's just like, oh, okay, hey, how are you?
Right.
Welcome. I'm gonna go do my thing now.
Mhm. Exactly.
At which most dogs can't. I mean, and Poppy, she's always been a little more excitable than Gouda ever has been.
Yeah.
Gouda's her whole
Oh,
life
Poppy
she's
still
been
gets excited to
dog.
see new dogs or have people come in or us go to a lesson. But like I said, 15, 20 minutes, she's like, I'm out. I'm done.
Okay.
I'm going to take a
Yeah.
nap.
It's like being grandma. Okay, I love spoiling your kids, but you can have them back now.
Exactly. That's a good way to put it. I
That's
like
why I
it.
like boarding and training dogs here at home. Like I could spend a week or so with you, but then you get to go home at the end of it.
Mhm.
That's why I really like you, and that's why you're allowed to come back.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, yeah, so back to new dogs. Dogs learning by acclimation, making sure that all the people in the house are aware of what the rules are for the new dog. And if that means that you have to not leave dogs unsupervised with young children, then that's what the rule has to be.
Ever.
Ever.
Never
Yeah.
leave them unattended.
No new dog should be left unattended anyway in a
Right.
home, but don't assume that a child can take the same level of supervision that an adult can.
Yeah.
They should not be the supervisor.
I do not have children, don't want children, but I know trainers who have had babies during their careers, right? And some of them spend literally months, maybe a year or more, with the dog and baby separated by a baby gate
Oh yeah.
or, crates and playpens and whatever those things are before real interactions start to occur.
Yeah, because guess what? As soon as your dog becomes afraid of your child, you're not going to change their mind about that.
Right.
And babies, toddlers, they're erratic. They make loud noises. They
Mm.
throw things. They pull your ears. They pull your tail. Like that's the best way to make your dog feel fearful of children for the rest of its life.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I
don't do it.
always cringe a little. I mean, I love the introduction of babies and dogs when they come in the house. The dog needs to know you've brought in this little being. But sometimes I think parents move way too fast.
Yeah. I personally don't have a lot of experience working with introducing babies.
Mhm.
Um, I've definitely given some advice, but it's just that general, like, here's the guidelines.
Right.
I've not worked one-on-one with anybody to, do you get those calls like, hey, we have a baby coming, we want someone
I
here
used to
to
get them
help
quite a
us?
lot in Charlotte. Here we have a lot of geriatric people,
Yeah.
so we
They're
don't
not
get.
having babies.
They're not. I do sometimes get calls of the dog comes with the kids to visit the grandparents.
Mhm.
And how do we do that? The grandparents have a dog and the kids are coming, what do
Yeah,
we do?
right.
And or the holidays. So the holidays was a big one, and I share this often, and I wish we could get the word out to people who need to hear it. But every year it's sort of the same story. Somebody takes a dog to grandma's house where there's a crowd of people and there's an incident because the dog is overwhelmed in a new environment, lots of crazy activities and kids that they are not familiar with.
Yeah. And they probably didn't have a leash on to know that
Oh, no.
someone was
Just
there
open
to
the door
have
and
their
let them
back.
all in. Yeah.
Yep.
And the dog escapes because the kid left the front door open,
Yeah.
or the dog charged a kid because he had cookies in his hand, or,
Yep.
whatever those things are. And I do get a fair amount of those calls going, what do I do now so that my kids can come visit us?
Right. And a lot of people's first reaction is to label their dog as aggressive too because
Right,
of an incident like that. When
right.
we really like, as a human, you need to step back and go, did my dog make this decision or did I put my dog in a really difficult position? He had no other
Exactly.
choice than to act this
Yeah.
way.
And more often it's the latter. We have put a
Yeah.
dog in a situation that was too much, too fast for too long. Right. And so part of my blog post is leave the dog home with a pet sitter.
Yep.
Right. You're gone.
Call Angela. They can stay at my house.
They can stay at my house. Right. But yeah, I mean, it's okay to not take your dog to grandma's house
Yeah.
for the 4th of July or for Christmas. Yes, it's a little bit of an added expense, but it's not nearly as expensive as the potential of what could go wrong.
Yeah. And I always go back to that original question. Does the dog want to go with you on Christmas vacation at grandma's 3 states away in a different climate with people he's never met? Or do you want the dog to do this?
Right.
Do
Yeah,
what's best for your dog, always.
exactly.
I wish more people thought about it that way.
Exactly. And I wish we could reach more people to think about that, right? So those of you
Oh,
listening,
we,
we need you to share.
yes, spread the
We
word.
need you to share these videos and
We're gonna skyride it. We're doing a GoFundMe to skyride it on one of those planes that takes us down the beach.
I like it. I like it. Because yeah, a lot of people don't think about those things until they have an incident. And then, like you say, the dog gets labeled, everybody's stressed, and it's worse from there.
Yeah, dog's never allowed to come back to any family functions because of the way it acted.
Mhm.
Yeah, especially with a new dog. Don't put a new dog in situations where they don't know what is expected of them, where you don't have the relationship with your dog yet for them to look to you for guidance.
Right.
We think, oh, well, a good example is adopting an older dog, an adult dog, and we think people assume that just because the dog is older, that the dog knows how it should behave in situations, but we've never shown that dog what we expect of it in these
No.
types of situations. Whether even if you get a puppy, you don't have a puppy for 2 weeks and expect that it knows what you want it to know.
Right. And I think we have to be careful with that whole 3-day, 3-week, 3-month meme that flies around that
Yeah.
basically says, give them a chance to adapt. It's not chance. It is teaching,
Yeah.
right? So when I fostered, and I haven't fostered in a while, but there would be many, many days, more than 3 in most cases, before the new foster was into my pack.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was one at a time, right? One
Yep.
dog greeting at a time. And then the next dog would greet, and then maybe the 2 of them. And it took layers of bringing in those relationships.
Yep.
And as you said, when you first started, is the moment you take the leash, whether it's the physical leash or the proverbial leash of bringing that dog into your home, you are training that dog to do something. And we need to make sure that we're teaching them the right things.
Yep.
Yeah.
Very important.
Mhm. What
Let's
else?
see what else. New dog, people,
Holidays and
dogs,
gun
crate
dog
training. I mean, we've gone
potty
on.
training.
Yeah.
I get a lot of those phone calls. Will you potty train my dog? No. You you're gonna do it. Here's my free guide. It's exactly what I would do if I was potty training a dog. But no, you have to do it. It's scheduling, it is crate training, it is leashing when they're out. The only time they come off that leash is in a fenced-in yard for playtime, right? We take them out on a leash for potty time training on a schedule, right? Can I do that for you? Yes. But if I send your dog home and your schedule's different than mine, you're going to have some issues. So no, you have to do it.
I do a little play on words when I get asked that question. Yes, I'll potty train your dog, but he'll only be potty trained in my house, not yours.
Yeah.
Unless
And I
you're
think
going
that's
to adapt the same exact schedule and the same exact expectations and rules.
right.
Doesn't
And
work
people
like
need to
that.
be careful about getting so regimented with the schedule that the dog goes out on schedule only and doesn't recognize that if we're deviating from schedule, that it's okay to go in the house.
Yeah.
Right. That's what you're describing there, right? Is
Yeah.
if we get the rhythm going and then we send them home and the rhythm's different, dog's like, I don't know that. Or the bells drive me insane. I tried it years ago just for the sake of learning to do it when I was a new trainer. And my dog just wanted to be outside. So it was like
Yeah.
the reverse doorbell rather than
Yeah.
somebody trying to come in. Mine are going, ding dong, let me out. They didn't have to be, they wanted to go play.
I
Yeah.
trained this really super smart Cocker Spaniel a year or so ago, and she had trained him on the buttons where you
Mhm.
pre-record your voice on buttons. And he was smart. He picked it up right away. The problem she has now, she works from home. The problem now is when he's getting ignored, he goes and hits the I have to potty button. Well, do you not let him outside because he's just trying to get you out of your chair? If you do, you're sending a very mixed message to him
That's
about the rules of potty. So you
Mhm.
have to get up and let him outside.
Exactly. That's the way it is with the bells. If they ring that bell, you've got to go,
Yeah.
you know. But do they really have to go like 5 minutes later? Then they just ring the No, my dogs just wanted to be out in the yard. That's
Yeah.
all they want, So yeah, I get it.
And they will outsmart you any opportunity they get.
Mhm. Exactly. Exactly. Um,
We didn't so tell me a little bit about what you're, as far as integrative, holistic type measures, oils, things like that to be prepared with and for with a new dog?
Well, so I was going to say we didn't really talk about crate training. We want you to crate train. We want everybody to crate train their dog, especially puppies and new dogs that are coming into the house. But that can bring in things like lavender or cedar wood, very calming, earthy. Think big tree essential oils that will help calm and ground them while they're learning to crate train, or learning to be alone, learning to sleep by themselves overnight. Those kinds of things can be really helpful. What was the question? Did I answer? I mean, because I could kick into nutrition and all for puppies.
Well, and that's where I was leading into, like, other than obedience type stuff. How do you get people prepared for a new dog as far as nutrition, wellness,
Yeah,
transition type of stuff?
I know that people tend to, we get a new puppy and we jump straight to the vet for vaccines, parasite control, flea and tick, all of those things. And I would just ask people to slow down, take a step back and do a little reading, do a little research. And I like to think that my website's a great place to start because I have a lot of those resources out there. Facebook group that Angela really is in. She just she just doesn't participate often.
New Year's goals. I'm going to participate in Facebook.
But we can talk about a lot of those things with you. But you know, as we think about vaccines, I am not anti-vaccine. I believe we need to make sure our puppies are prevented from contracting things like parvo and distemper. The law requires us to have the rabies vaccine. You do not need it at 4 months of age. You just don't. You need it. The law says 6 months, and I try to push it as close to that or a little past it if I can get there. And then to do some detox work when we have that. Don't administer them at the same time. Like if you're going to do, so parvo and distemper comes in a combo shot. It can actually come in 2 separate shots too, which is very rare these days, but it is possible. But a lot of times we'll take a dog to the vet and get all the stuff at one time. And I would encourage you not to do that, to separate them out by a couple of weeks, at least 2 to 3 weeks apart. Even if that costs you an extra vet visit, it may save you a significant amount of issues and heartache relative to things like allergies, seizures, autoimmune issues that can all be contributed to with over-vaccination. And over-vaccination doesn't just mean we do it too often. It may mean we've done too much at one time.
Yeah. And I'll insert there too. All of that's the normal routine for puppies. But even if you're adopting an older dog, keep in mind that the rescue has probably done all of these things fairly close together to get your dog ready for adoption. So you still need to consider things like a detox once they get to your home. They might not need any vaccines, but think about what they probably have already received and make sure you're giving them some support.
And even if it's been, like 6 weeks or 3 months ago that happened, I would say do some detox work immediately. Get on a good, fresh diet. But really start to help rebuild that body's immune system, because vaccines actually do deplete it a bit. The whole goal is to protect the body against some virus or disease or whatever. But when we give those vaccines, we actually inhibit the immune system. So we need to build that back up.
And no matter what age or circumstance your dog came from, a new dog, you want to be learning and you want them to feel well to learn. And if they're going through all of this stuff, they're not at their best as far as wellness.
Yeah. And I really appreciate people who adopt dogs with health issues or anxiety, or you get a dog and you're like, oh my God, I just got my anxiety, right? There are so many things that we can do that are not prescription drug um, solutions. Lots of things. So, despite the fact, and I get it, you've adopted a new dog, there's expense that comes with that, and you're thinking, oh my God, now I got to deal with this too, which is an expense. But if you will tackle it early, you're going to save so much stress for everybody. And in the long term, you're going to save a lot of money.
Yeah. Think proactively, like I know I'm getting a dog this year, probably. Start getting some of the supplies that you'll need ahead of time so it's not a huge expense all at once.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And we know that dogs and people who are dealing with stress and anxiety, it can actually affect their behavior. It can affect their digestive system. It can affect their longevity. It can affect their ability to learn. Um, all of it is very intertwined, even though we as humans and frankly some veterinarians of of the way they were brought up or the way they were taught, we tend to put things in a silo versus looking at the whole body of that animal, the whole being, and trying to make those problems get resolved.
Yep.
So vaccine information is on my website. Spay neuter is a big deal. I haven't seen it lately, but I used to see, especially when I lived in Charlotte, puppies that were being vaccinated sometimes as early as 8 to 9 weeks. And it
Spay
just,
and
that
neuter.
would make, it killed me every time I saw one of those puppies, right? Because we affect so many developmental things when we do that. We also know that early spay neuter, even as early as 6 months for females and males, sometimes especially like the big Dobies and the Danes, and we introduce the risk of cancer, bone disease, arthritis, all sorts of things get increased in their risk factors with early spay neuter. And that means before they have reached maturity, which for some breeds is at least 2 years of age.
Yeah.
That means, yeah, for some females, you might have to go through a heat cycle. For some multi-dog families, you might have to keep the female and the male separated from each other, right? And it's not always pleasant for everybody, but it is really important to their health and their longevity.
Funny story about females and heat. I have this dog. I trained her a couple years ago. She's a beautiful husky, a husky agouti. It's a rare breed of husky.
Okay.
And she's unaltered, and she without, we don't know how this happens. She every time they're on vacation and Kona is staying with me, she goes into heat. It's been her way for a couple years now. She was just here last week. They took a vacation to Hawaii before everybody goes back to school. And about 2 days after they dropped her off, she was in heat.
And that probably turns your kennel room upside down.
Oh, you have no idea.
Yes, I do. They're done that.
Oh, luckily it was mostly females, and she didn't get weird with any of the females. She was fresh. She was throwing it at the boys for sure.
Yeah.
But she didn't have any major attitude problems or anything during her cycle. So, but it was a tough week for her. Like, her hormones are going crazy, and she's an adult dog in heat. She wants to be bred, and there's all these dogs around her. She's like, yes, this is perfect.
Thank you for bringing me here.
I told her mom, I said, I think that's why she waits. She knows there'll be dogs here.
Oh, wow. Have you looked at it on the calendar, like for the cycle of things to see the
Yeah,
time?
they always take it. She's a teacher, so their trips
Uh,
are planned around school schedules. They take a trip over Christmas break and they take a trip at the beginning of summer break. And
got
that's
it.
every 6 months essentially.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I see. I was thinking that maybe it was like she comes once a month and then it just flares
And just has no. I mean the
up
way it falls is definitely like it's our
in
fault.
her cycle. I got it. I got it.
But it's funny that it happens that way because they never have to deal with it. I do.
Right. But, to the pet parents out there, you can get through it. You can just get
Yes.
through it.
It's not
And
that bad.
yeah, it's not like you have to become these big researchers or, I know people get overwhelmed really easily. I see it in my Facebook group all the time. They're like, I'm just overwhelmed. I don't even know where to begin. And there's so much information flowing around. And honest to goodness, I'm in some Facebook groups that I just monitor to see what people are talking about and what questions they have. And people will post a very innocuous question about what should I feed my dog with allergies? And they'll post that to me sometimes. And I'm like, I don't know yet. I need to know a little bit more about your dog. Yet in
Mhm.
some of these Facebook groups, they start flinging out all sorts of answers.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where I think the overwhelm comes from, because there are things that contradict.
Hmm.
And there are things that you'll read and go, okay, I'm going to try that. And it doesn't work for your dog.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Because whoever
you
gave,
get frustrated and quit because that first thing you tried didn't work.
that's right. Because whoever gave you that information did not take a step back and figure out what that means for your individual animal. They're all individual. We can't just blindly go, this is the protocol. I have protocols for everything, but they are starting points. They are some common steps. And if that works, awesome. If it doesn't, then where are we going from there? And that's when, you need some help, right? And I hate to see people waste money, and they do. I walk into houses and see supplements lined up on the counter, and people, I tried everything and it doesn't work. And I'm like, well, that was never going to work. It's not what we need, you know? So anyway,
I've been guilty of that. I won't lie.
I have
Somebody says something worked and I buy it without even thinking so that I can try it.
stop it. Because, I mean, do you even need it? Right? Because Candace is one of my mentors over the years, and she actually says, well, there's a lot of things she says. She's a wise woman. But when we over supplement something, we can actually create the very thing we are trying to prevent.
Oh, yeah.
Because we turn triggers on in the body. The body's like, I have to do something with this thing you gave me. And we're either going to overstimulate things or we're going to sedate things. And that may not be the right thing to do in that situation, paired with the other things that are also going on.
Yes. I learned that lesson the hard way with Gouda. As soon as we got the kidney diagnosis, we, we tried this and we tried that, but then you have to go back and make sure that it didn't affect this because she also was hypertensive when in the midst of everything happening. And yeah, it's been a constant battle with us to make sure certain levels don't get too high because you're doing this.
Right.
You treat the kidneys with this, but it could also put too much stress on the liver, and you just have to find a balance between all of it.
Mm-hmm. And you have.
We have,
You've done a very good job.
yes. But I know that the fight is not over.
Yeah, it's never
It's
over.
because the body's changing constantly as it's dealing with the disease. You can't say, okay, good, we reached these levels, we're good. No, you have to keep checking and keep monitoring.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. We all do.
Yep.
Okay.
So
All
that's
right.
covered a lot. Go to
We did cover a lot.
Dana's website for things like crate training and anxiety for new dogs. She has information on all of those things that we didn't go in depth about today.
Yeah, when I make the post, so we post this on the podcast site, so you can watch it or listen to it rather, anywhere people listen to podcasts. But it also gets posted on YouTube and our Facebook. So we'll make sure the links to those particular topics are shared there as well. But reach out. Angela does a fabulous board and train program. You're doing some private lessons too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep.
So,
Sometimes the board and train is not the answer.
exactly. Exactly. Sometimes the pet parent needs to go through the process with the dog.
Yep.
Because they have as much to learn, if not more, than the dog does.
Yes.
So, yeah. So let us know what you need, and we'll help make sure you're on the right path. And then if there are other topics or questions, please share them with us. We would love to use your questions as a starting point for these topics and discussions that we have. And we're actually happy to bring in people to have dialogue with us. If you have an issue that's going on, we'll spend some time chatting with you about that.
Yes.
Anything else, my friend?
I think I'll say this. If there's one takeaway when thinking about getting a new dog, whether it's a puppy or an adult, think before you act. Be prepared. Don't get a dog on a whim and not be prepared.
Yeah. And keep in mind that the dog you get now is not the dog you used to have. They're
Yes.
not going to be the same. Even if they're the same breed and maybe from the same breeder, they are not the same being. They're just not. They may
You will be heartbroken that you thought you were getting the same dog, and
right.
odds
It
are
may
it'll
take
be
a
completely
lot more
different.
work. It may take a lot more work. And we're not as young as we used to be when we had those other dogs either.
Definitely.
I had a client, love him, love his little dog, love his little dog. But God bless him. He's an older man. He's significantly older than me, I think. And he got a puppy. And really what he wanted was a lap dog. Well, this puppy is not that.
No. It doesn't matter what the breed is. If it's a puppy, it's a puppy.
It's not even almost a lap dog. It's maturing now. It's now closer to 3 years old. But at the time, the man was incredibly frustrated. It's like, I just want the dog to sit in my lap. And I'm like, that's not happening right now. And he's like, he was coming off of a 15-year-old dog that he had had for 15 years.
Yep.
And it was a shock. It was a big shock. And the amount of effort and frustration that went into getting the dog to where he is now, despite training, right? I mean, the dog was training, but he just full of energy and spit and vinegar.
Why can't our brains remember the woes of puppyhood? We have PTSD about so many
Because they're
things
cute and adorable.
that
And we
we
see the
forget.
cute little pictures of them and go, oh my God, it's stolen my heart. And you bring it home and you go, sit down.
Stolen your heart and now stolen your life.
Exactly. All right, everybody. You guys have a wonderful day, and we'll see you on the next podcast. Thank you for joining us on the Well Old Canine Podcast. I'm Dana Brigman, your canine nutritionist and certified holistic pet health coach. I hope you found today's episode valuable and inspiring for your journey towards better health for your dog. Don't forget to visit me at theweloldcanine.com and check out our members forum for lots of discussions, interactions, education that you won't find anywhere else. That's at members.well